Serverless 360 is a complementary product to the Azure portal in managing and monitoring complex Azure solutions. So, with his rich experience in the field, Mike Stephenson is involved in evolving the product. For today's session, he is accompanied by Ezhilarasi, who works closely with Serverless 360 customers to figure out all their feature requirements and plan the product roadmap accordingly. Let's hear what they have in store for us. Welcome both.
Welcome you all. It's a pleasure to be here representing Serverless 360. And I'm glad to meet everyone in person after a couple of years presenting the product update. I'm Ezhilarasi. I'm leading the product consultant team of Serverless 360. And this gives me a lot of opportunities to interact with global customers, understand their business, and deliver what would add value to their business. And that's how we are delivering Serverless 360 product updates. So our journey, our experience into the integration space is with BizTalk 360, our flagship product, which is transforming the operations with BizTalk Server in global enterprises. And this opportunity gives us those exposure into the global business infrastructures, understanding what exactly is the problem, and deliver solutions to improve the overall operational efficiency. So with this learning, as the industry started adopting to Azure, as they got their integrations into the Azure space, we also started building applications in Azure, and we found similar operational needs are yet to be addressed in the Azure space as well. And that's how we came up with idea of Serverless 360. So in this journey, we had certain observations, and our actions were driven by these observations. What we found were out of the total number of issues that are identified in the production, 90% of them are functional and data errors, which means these can be safely offloaded to an operations team, and the Azure expert team can be allowed to innovate in their business. I need to emphasize here safely offloaded. So we need an excellent tool set that would facilitate this offloading of support. So 60% of these issues can be democratized. Yes, you can democratize support by automating certain operational routines that can be facilitated using a tool like Serverless 360. So that is the actual idea. So we came up with Serverless 360, an advanced cloud management platform focused on Microsoft Azure. So this has been recognized by a number of enterprises across the globe, and we are proud to share here that we are solving real-time operational challenges with a rich feature set that we have in our product. We are also available in Azure Marketplace, and get a little deeper into what are these operational challenges that we are repeatedly talking about, and how does our product solve this? Yes, so let me quickly show you an Azure portal. So this is my Azure portal. I have got number of business applications built using Azure services. Yes, we have to agree that the integration services have made our life much better in building applications. Yes, it has transformed the way we build applications. I get to put together the services just like putting the Lego blocks together, and I get to see the application up and running in a minute. Yes, so that's an incredible experience. Yes, what happens after that? So here, as I start building more and more applications, I end up with a bunch of resources that could be spread across subscriptions, regions, and resource groups. Yes, this is what I get to see in the Azure portal. Can you infer this particular logic app, booking processor, which business application does it actually belong to? And what is the status of my applications at this point in time? So this is in question, which is a key observability requirement that any person who is dealing with an application in production needs to know, isn't it? So when I manage a number of business applications, how helpful an interface like this that Serverless 360 offers clearly segregate the resources as business applications along with their present real-time status. So I deal with a number of business applications here, and I find that one of my business application has got an issue, and I get drilled down to figure out which particular resource has got a problem. Yes, that's the next level of understanding any support or operations team need to have to restore your business application even before your customer realizes that there is a problem. So here, again, can I infer the status of a particular queue here? What is the status of my queue? Is there any problem? Is there any dead letters? And a dead letter in a queue would define a problem in my business, isn't it? An incoming order which has not been processed by my backend processor ends up in a dead letter queue. So I do not get an inference on the status of my resource instantly on the Azure portal. Whereas we complement the portal, taking care of giving you an interface wherein your team can understand how exactly are these resources connected with each other and what is their status at this point in time. I find that my booking handler queue has got a problem, and I get an instant feedback on what exactly the problem is. I find that the dead letter messages in my queue is enormous, which means my business has got a problem that needs to be restored, isn't it? Yeah. So any application performance monitoring tool would stop at this point. It will help you identify where the problem is. Yes, so Serverless 360 is not yet another application performance monitoring tool. We give you the exact operational tool set to restore this error. So we give you an interface to explore into your queue, dead letters. Yes, here I have an option to either peek into my queue without impacting my active listeners, or I can defer the messages from the queue to process them. Yes, I have the interface to explore my queue messages, and say if I want to do a bulk resubmission, I find that a number of messages have got into the dead letter queue due to time to live expiry, which means the logic app listening to this queue is down for some reason, and these messages have ended up into the dead letter queue. So I need to take an action, isn't it? I need to restore my logic app and resubmit all these messages back into the original queue, or if I have a failover system, I would like to resubmit that back there. So this is an operational need which is not available as a straightforward solution, instead which can be achieved with the help of Serverless 360. Say what if a scenario is a bit more complex? Say this is a cab booking scenario, and the person has booked a cab and the booking is assigned with a driver, but the driver is right now inactive. I need to edit the message and then reprocess it. Yes, so I can modify the message content or the key properties of the queue, or if I want to let my downstream application know that this is a repaired message and this needs to be handled a different way, I can redefine the user properties on the message and then proceed to resubmit. So this tool set would be critical in case of dealing with your day-to-day operations. And what if I am dealing with a business of massive scale? Say I'm not dealing with hundreds or tens of dead letter messages. It's huge, 10,000 and 20,000, where a manual effort involved in dealing with them is humongous. So I need a bit of automation, isn't it? So we facilitate that too. So we have well-thought features that's going to help you restore your dead letters without much of manual intervention. So here is an dead letter processing automated task that can help you filter out the messages by a specific dead letter reset and then reprocess them. Say when I'm looking for a dead letter of a specific business reason, say all those messages which has been dead lettered with a business exception, say invalid ID, need to be purged off from my queue because I have no reason of retaining them. So I can specify any business exception like this and make sure that the messages are handled without much of manual intervention. And this is one feature that has added value to our customer scenarios. Yeah. Should I close this mic? Yeah. Minimize it, okay. I hope it won't restart in middle. I don't mind redoing it. Okay, so where did we leave? Automating your dead letter processing. So we have similar automated tasks for processing your failures in the logic apps and the event grid dead letter messages. So we have taught well to support the integration services and efficiently working with the operational needs of them. So now coming to the next scenario. My business is running in real time, and my business users are often struck with a question like, where did a message go, or what happened to a particular order? So these are questions that we face day in and day out, isn't it? So we need a distributed tracing solution. So your system might be running across platforms, across technologies, and still I need an end-to-end visibility of the message that is flowing through various components in my business. Yes, so that would be an view that everyone would be longing for to deal with business exceptions. So here we provide you that. So we expose our BAM HTTP endpoints or connectors or .NET libraries that can be instrumented into your business applications, and we'll give you an end-to-end tracking of the message flowing through various components of your business. Yes. So with that, what comes as a benefit is like we allow you to visualize all your transactions, and you can fire queries to filter and then look into a specific transaction. And here is an action required tab that's automatically created by the tool. The moment your support engineer logs in, they get a focused view on those failures which needs to be immediately acted on. So all these would sum up to improve your operational efficiency. Yes, and this you can, in the tool supports you to assign a particular transaction to a specific team member and then address them on priority. And another critical need would be like Azure subscriptions are sometimes very complex. Yes, I built, say in our own scenario, we have another product called Document 360, which is a very fast evolving product. And we have customers being onboarded every day. Our Azure consumption grows exponentially, and we do need to have an eye on that. We found this could be a requirement across various businesses. Yes, as your business grows, your Azure consumption grows, and so there is a need to have an eye on it. And that's why we came up with a dedicated tool set in Serverless 360 called Azure Documenter, which makes your Azure subscription more readable. Same how we utilize it is like every month we have a triage discussion wherein we evaluate how have our Azure subscription evolved, where do we spend our subscription, where do we spend money in our Azure subscription, how many resources has been added, how many has been removed. So we get into a discussion, we triage and then see has these actions happened with necessary, or in case of any exponential consumption, we revisit it, we analyze how are we spending it in the right direction. So this has proven to be a need solution across various businesses, and we built it for our need, but we found that to be useful for various businesses as well. And we also get a readable version of your entire Azure subscription, which you can create a security report which can be shared with your customer to prove your compliance on standards. So when it comes to working as a team on your Azure subscription, it is also necessary to provide them with a need-only permission and ensure that it is ensured that your users are using your Azure resources the right way, isn't it? So it becomes necessary to manage the user roles and audit their actions. And that is why we have an granular user access policy definition possible in Serverless 360. It's very simple, straightforward. You can define and role that maps the user actions that they can perform. You can get into the granular depth, like you can allow an user either to resubmit a message or repair and resubmit, or allow them only to read a content. So you can get into a granular user definition and you can apply it on a bunch of users. It can be even your Active Directory group, or your Active Directory users can be invited to a role. And it's necessary to have an eye on the actions done by your team members, isn't it? To avoid any and certain activities. So here is a governance and audit feature that helps you track every action that the user performs on your resources, and you can get details on what has been the operation performed on it. So this is an overview of Serverless 360's key features, and I'd be happy to help you check how Serverless 360 can add value to your specific business by engaging in a specific conversation. So rather than me going on and on about the product, I would like to invite a customer of ours who had been in great support to us to share his experience with the product. Manish, can I have you on stage? Manish is a senior cloud architect in Kleinschmidt, and he is
Thank you.
he's building incredible EDI integrations for global businesses. It's a pleasure to have you here, Manish.
Same here, likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Please share a bit about your business and what is the business domain you're dealing with.
Yes, so my name is Manish Upadhyaya. I've been in the Microsoft integration space for, I say, over 15 years now. I'm working for Kleinschmidt. We are an EDI service provider out of Chicago, USA. And we do a lot of EDI mapping, data transformation, and also we connect heterogeneous kind of systems. We have customers who are still using modems, and on the other side, we still have customers who are using AWS, Azure, and things like that. So we take pride in mapping any to any document space.
Absolutely. And you have been using Serverless 360 for more than 3 years now. And how has been your experience with the product?
Yeah, great. So yes, we really jumped on board when you guys announced it. We are using it extensively for monitoring our Azure infrastructure, and things like RBAC-based access. We don't want to expose our portal to the support staff, because many of those things need contributor level access, which is a no-no. Monitoring is very critical, as everybody knows it. One of the things I could quote here is regions don't go down. We talk about a lot, hey, but an offering in a region might start showing things. What happens is, say, a logic app in East US2 might be throttling. So that's a very real life experience we have. We get alerted, and our normal course is we open up a ticket, and also we tweet Azure support. And most of the time, Azure support in Twitter is the first one to respond, hey, could you DM me your subscription? So that's where I would say multiple times Serverless 360 has saved us.
Oh, it makes our day. When we get to know that we solve a problem and that adds value to our business, it's an incredible feeling. Yes.
Yes, it does. There are many features, and also we are exploring the BAM aspects of it. We are trying to weave that into our main application, so we could use this customer-centric, customer data-centric end-to-end tracking. Really looking forward for that application to come up online.
Thank you, Manish.
Thank you.
So that says it all. Now, from here on, I'll hand it over to Mike, and who is going to take you through a much complex real-time scenario and show the product in action.
Great job there. Can everybody hear okay? Yeah, it sounds like it's good. First off, apologies for the Norton antivirus update. That's the first time I've had that kind of demo gremlin when we've done a session. So, but at least it's my AV's up to date, which is good. So, and I've heard a couple of sentences said during presentations this week, which kind of really resonate with the Serverless 360 use case. So, Steve Jans said a really interesting thing in the last session. He said, I get all this support. The company I'm working for needs to realize I'm a consultant. I'm not going to be here forever. That's a really big problem for a lot of customers who need to support Azure solutions, particularly when we have things like Kent said earlier on. Today the game's all about agility, speed of delivery. We build more value, we deliver more stuff. But actually, we're pulling all this baggage behind us that while we deliver new stuff, how do you support that, and how do you keep your velocity going when that burden of carrying this baggage builds all the time? And that's a really big problem. And Like I was just sitting thinking about it. It's like over 10 years I've been delivering real world solutions on Azure for customers. And that problem's existed since day one, but it's still a problem, and it's probably a bigger problem than ever. So that to me validates this need for the ability to support a solution and run it in the real world. Now, one of the slides that I put together to help explain to customers the value proposition for serverless is this slide here. And what I wanted to do in this session is kind of, that the slide's all about the problem where, in Steve Jan's case, all of the support burden goes to that Azure expert. You've got this escalation through business users, level 1, level 2, sometimes even level 3, and it still goes to developers and Azure experts before there's any real action can be taken in so many scenarios. And we talk about this idea of pushing support left, so it's making people further, well, I guess that's right, left as you look at it. So we're pushing the support burden back to the level 2, level 1 support so they can actually participate and do something. And what I wanted to do in this session was just, because that's just a slide we talk about, but I want to show how we can do that in the real world with one of the customers I've worked with where we've implemented serverless. And I think I've shown some of the stuff we've done to a whole bunch of people who've really got a lot of value from looking at it. So what I wanted to do was share some stuff with you guys and hopefully just show you what we can do, and maybe it gives you a few ideas of how it might help. So if we understand the customer that I've worked with, so they've got an integration platform they've been building for a number of years. We have an interface catalog. You're talking about 200 plus interfaces in this catalog that do all sorts of different stuff. We do API management, logic apps, functions, the whole work, batch, real time, etc., etc. So we've got a lot of different things people are going to be doing. And as I say, as the complexity and the number of interfaces increases, we've got this big burden that we're carrying. So we have, just to give you an idea of scale, we've got 5 million logic app plus runs a month, 100 million actions, 2 million API calls. But just in terms of Azure resources, we've got 500 logic apps, we've got 80 service bus queues and topics, 30 APIs and APIM, 100 functions. How do you support that? How big a team do you need to be able to run that operation? That's a really big challenge for people to sort of build a team that you can invest in their skills, sustain them, and actually just, the cost of having the experts to run that kind of platform is a significant cost. So anything you can do to help less experienced people join in, take some of that burden off, means that the experts you've got, you can focus on them delivering new business value and less time doing fairly low value support tasks. So the integration platform we've got, I've mentioned a few of the services, but this is really kind of a picture of what it looks like. We've got service bus, functions, logic apps, integration. You name it, we've got it in the iPaaS space. We also do loads of Synapse stuff and big power platform investment. So everything we're talking about this week, we've been doing it for a few years and having some good success with it. Now, this really is kind of the problem here. It's this balance between support and new stuff. So that's really what we want to address. Now, I'm going to look at it from two angles. I'm going to look at how do we support the integration platform and how do we support individual business interfaces? Because if you think about, a business interface, there's really some business person owns that interface. They want a service delivered from your integration center of excellence. And how do you support the individual business feature versus the platform are two slightly different things. And what I want to do is talk about the people that we have that do stuff, what their roles are, what kind of things they do with serverless. So first off, if we look at the platform level integration, we've got a guy called Curtis, who's one of our kind of main people. Now, Curtis isn't a developer. He's never used the Azure portal for anything that he's built unless he's doing a bit of learning in his own time. But he's really a guy who's, he's fairly new to the team. He's been with the company a couple of years, but he really came as a grad. He's, as I say, he's not a developer. He's got very limited IT experience, but he's a fantastic business analyst learning to do integration, BA requirement type things. And he also supports and does that triage of our integration. So if we get a kind of a platform level issue coming in, he's one of the first people to be really looking at it when it gets to the integration area. So let's take a look at some of the things he can do then. So if I go over into my Azure portal here, so my serverless portal, Curtis's real focus is around business applications. So when we've built our solutions, we're preparing an estate to help him manage this. So if you look here, we've got this tree view in the business applications, and we can go into our area here, and you'll see we've structured it where we've got logs, platform, and interfaces. And that's really that separation bit. The logs bit's about presenting views that we kind of want anybody to be able to look at. So we can go and do some dashboards in here. So we've got a lot of, people might have seen a few months ago, we brought out a lot of log analytics and app insights type features. So we can build these dashboards. And one of the kind of common ones we look at is we've got this EAI platform dashboard. So we kind of go to everybody, look, we've got a bunch of tests we run all the time against the integration platform. They produce an SLA, which is kind of like, that's what our integration platform SLA is. And we just share it on this dashboard by running these tests all the time, and you can, you kind of get a flavor of what it's performing like. And then you can see here we've got a bunch of other dashboards for things like API management. It's quite an interesting one. We've built this dashboard to show people what some of our APIs are like and things like that. But the bit Curtis is going to focus on most is this platform area. So the main one's this general bit, and I'll kind of just open this up so you can see here is a lot of our platform resources. We've got functions and all sorts of stuff like that. And what we can do is, one of the great things is the time it takes you to set up your monitoring is one of the things you need to think about. So, particularly if you're using Azure Monitor, you can get lots and lots of investment in having to configure this low-level monitoring. But when we've used serverless, there's this feature about monitoring profiles you'll notice down here. So as soon as we add a resource to serverless, it's automatically configuring that default monitoring. So every time a new logic app comes in, it just picks up the default, and you can tune it if you want to and stuff, but getting that monitoring from day one really helps us. And then we can do things like here, we've got a service map feature which shows us, you can see the groupings here of there's all of our function apps, our API management, our messaging areas. And if we get an alert from it, we can kind of go in and hotspot where the alert's going to affect what it relates to in the platform. And we can build some dashboards as well to help us, kind of see how certain things are performing. So really an easy one to look at here is just let's say if we change the times. So if I look at the last hour over today, so it's probably quite quiet at the minute, but we'll see that, here's all of our requests on API management. Here's our, we've got a nice environment for logic apps, so here's how many runs we can have, and you can see we've got a big spike of them at that point in the day. Service bus usage and event grid's not really being used much at the minute, but you start kind of being able to build these views to help you support the solution. Now, when we have the monitoring, you can see here, I think we noticed on the home screen, we've had a few alerts. We had a couple of issues the other day. And one of the really good things for us is that we want to have this platform kind of good as often as possible. We want as few issues as we can. And you probably see it might have been last week, we had a couple of issues. So we had a couple of issues on Thursday with a few things triggering the alerts. But I can go back in the calendar and kind of track like when we've had issues, and at the minute there's nothing reporting as an issue, but I can go and have a look and see when we've had stuff. And we've done a lot of effort over the last few months about tuning our kind of support, so tweaking some of the monitoring, making a couple of changes to logic apps and APIs just so they perform better. A really great example actually of that was I was telling a few people earlier, we had this logic app, and one of the problems with it was it's been running for like over a year, and it's not something we really get a lot of problems with, and it was just chugging away in the background. And what it does is it calls into Workday, gets a bunch of data, like a batch of data back, and then it works through this data, pub subbing stuff out, updating other systems. And I added it to serverless, and it's not even a logic app I've ever actually looked at. It was developed by one of the other guys in the team, and been chugging along really nicely, but serverless just kept firing these metric alerts about, actually you've got, I think we were getting like, sometimes we'd have 100 action failures, and I'm like, well actually that's why is that happening? It's never really reported a problem before. We've never had any users reporting a problem. And what was happening is there was an error happening in the processing of the batch, and it was getting handled and everything was fine. But when we looked at it, we noticed that actually there was a bit in the code where the filter was wrong on the query of Workday, so we were just getting an ever-increasing batch of records, and eventually this would have blown out the logic app limit on the number of iterations of a loop. So we would have had a downtime on that we would have got in a couple of months' time when it probably hit that max limit. But we never knew we had that problem until we actually put this low-level monitoring on that was kind of telling us, it's like a new view on what's happening in your system that you maybe don't know is happening. So that was quite an interesting one for us. And then Curtis as well, he, as well as the platform bit in our interfaces, he's really looking at this area here where we've got these common interfaces. These are, you know, I talk about them a lot in our company as being like architecture building blocks. They're the common services that we use when we do various bits of integration. So we've got this EDMS links about sending data from Service Bus to Synapse, and we've got event APIs. We've got quite an interesting one here, a GPS API that we're building. So if you imagine, one of the things that we do is we've got all these rail cars moving around the US, and they send GPS events to us, and we use these to drive a number of different use cases for various things. And we get these GPS events coming to a partner, then they come into our organization. And one of the bits, so we've got the API receiving the events, and we've been building some of the back end stuff. So this is a good example of the agility where we can build the receiver API a few months ago. We know we don't need to do anything with it yet, but it was easy to do that. And we start learning about the events as rail cars are moving around, and we build the other stuff later. And one of the things I did, so we kind of, if you imagine the events hit our API management, we push them onto Service Bus and we pub sub them. And I can build this dashboard using the App Insights integration for APIM. We just add some custo queries here. And if you think, you know, put yourself in Curtis's position as a non-Azure, non-developer person, he's got no visibility of that API and he doesn't know how to write custo queries. So he's in a real difficult challenge to support that solution. So we can just put some queries together and make them accessible to him in this dashboard. And he can go and see how it's performing. You know, if I scroll down a little bit, we can see, you know, the number of requests a day. And this important graph here was this location events per hour. And I'm looking at that going, well, actually, I'm getting like 40 events an hour, and I know we've got 2,500 rail cars, and I was expecting as a minimum 1 event per hour per rail car. So I'm like, actually, here's another problem where we put it into production, everything seems fine, and it's not performing and working the way we're expecting. So we talked to the vendors, and actually it was never really a problem. And what we did was, I'll see if I can go in and kind of show you guys, we put in App Insights, so we do this query here, so you can write a custo query, which is quite a cool feature, and you can actually have Serverless 360 will go and execute that query periodically and look for any issue. So I was saying, have we had a GPS event in the last hour? If we haven't, trigger an alert because we might have a problem. So that's a bit like a data processing query. So you could do, you know, if you think about what that does, you could do that kind of thing with logic apps for App Insights. You could do it with, you know, functions quite often uses that. You could do it with pretty much anything in log analytics as well. So it's a really good way of getting some high value monitoring of stuff that might be quite custom. And the problem we found was that the rail cars we had, if they're just not moving, the GPS detector box things, they kind of go into like hibernate mode. So they go, well, I haven't moved for a few hours. I'm just going to drop the number of events and I'll just send you 1 a day. And if I start moving, I'll tell you more frequently. So it was never really a problem, but we didn't know that until the alert and started saying, hey, this isn't working the way you're expecting. So hopefully that kind of gives you a few minutes there just to show how we start enabling Curtis to be able to go and support some of these interfaces. In the past, these would have all gone to our consultants, you know, the Steve Jan scenario, hey, I'm not around in a number of months, how are you going to look after this? So we can get Curtis to start doing that. So next up, if I get back the slides here. So there's just a couple of the highlights really. You know, I mean, there's so many more features, you know, Ezil showed things like there's logic app features where you can deep dive, you know, action required's a great feature where you can see, here's a list of the ones that have had errors that you haven't dealt with, which I think is a really good use case. There's so much more low-level stuff, but just getting in there and starting to see what's happening, I think is really important. And then if we think, so we've gone to Curtis, so I would say Curtis is really kind of our, you know, level 2, level 3, somewhere in the middle of that sort of support person. And if we start looking at our transport interfaces, I want to see, well, I've moved some of the support left. What else can I move further left? So as the Azure expert, we can start doing more new stuff and less kind of dragging the baggage kind of thing. So from a transport management perspective, we've got this quite complicated set of interfaces. So we've got a scenario where we've got the plant at the bottom. The plant gets rail cars moved into it. They get loaded with product, and the plant sends out messages for the other systems to say, hey, we've got a new rail car, it's full of stuff. It's going to start getting moved around and letting you all know about this. So then when a customer makes an order, our transport system gets told, look, here's an order, go and assign a rail car to it and send it to deliver that product. So that's where we've got all these different use cases of different systems need to be aware of what's going on. We also try to send everything to our Synapse platform for any reports we want to build. And then you can see there the little box on the left's really where the GPS data starts coming in, you know, telling us where the cars are. But if we deep dive into that a little bit further, you'll see we've got these specific interfaces about things like railcar loaded, railcar shipping statuses. We get data coming from the railcars, you know, the railcar infrastructure about as railcars pass checkpoints in addition to the GPS stuff. So we've got, you know, as we dig deeper into the architecture, you get into this more complex areas, and this is getting to these business interfaces. And one of our ones that I find quite interesting to look at is this loaded railcar idea. So what we do is we have an event comes from the plant to say, this rail car's come under the loading dock, it's been loaded with product, it's been weighed, you know how much product's in it, how much the rail car is, and as it moves out, that's when you get told, look, hey, new loaded rail car. And you can see that we have an event comes in through service bus, and the green boxes are really some logic app interfaces. So we've got this one that gets the event, we do a bunch of like conversions, validations and stuff, archive the fact that we've had a loaded rail car, and then we publish this canonical message, a bit like, you know, in the BizTalk kind of, a lot of BizTalk implementations, we say, here's the canonical event of a loaded rail car that everybody starts getting their interfaces subscribed to it. So that interface on its own, that's quite complicated to support, you know, and what we want to do is, in addition to Curtis, if we start pushing support left, we've got Ronald and Ian. So Ian and Ronald are really the kind of like business super user / application experts. So they look after the transport applications, they look after the trading applications, they know the business process. They're not really, you know, Ronald's got a little bit of development experience, but that's not really his key area. They're really specialists in that business context. And what we want to be able to do is to say, look, guys, you know these interfaces, they're your interfaces. How can we let you self-service them? Now, that's the bit you can't do in Azure. How do I let my users run their own interfaces? Because really, you know, when you go and buy a car from the garage, you don't get the garage to drive it round for you, do you? So let's have a look at how they do that. And that's really, it's really where we go back into serverless, and we're using the BAM area now. So here we've got, I'm going to look at probably these two processes. So they're running in our test environment at the minute. And a couple of little stories. So, you know, the best bit is we've got loads of UAT testing going on at the minute for some of our new stuff we're releasing. And actually, Luciano's been on holiday, I'm here at a conference, and they're supporting their own interfaces in the testing, and we hardly ever get hassled by them because they just work. And whenever, you know, the most common question is, oh, we did this in the app, what happened? Where I think Ezil said it, where's my message? What happened at order 55, where is it? Should have said order 66, would have been a bit funnier, but too late. Given the guys visibility to come into BAM and go, right, here's my transactions. So you can see we've got some shipping status transactions. You know, you can see you've got things going through the system. So here's all the transport related interfaces. We actually get quite a lot of shipping updates every hour, so that's why you'll see most of these. But what they want to do is that there's a couple of quite simple things they want to do is I've got a business ID, so I've got a bill of lading ID, a rail car ID, a load slip ID. Can I just find that message so they can go and, they can enter a query up here and they, I can put in bill of lading or something like that and I can just run a search and find it. And what we do with BAM is, if you think of some of these logic apps, they might be 50, 100 shapes, depending on how complex they are. Those guys don't care about that. All they want to know is, did my interface start? Did it get an error? Has it finished? If there was an error, can we troubleshoot it a little bit? So you might have technical errors you don't want them to see, but you might have business errors or, like a common one is if I can let's say, quite often we let our SAP team come and have a look in BAM as well, because sometimes the interface sends a message to SAP and SAP throws an error. And actually, I end up going, debugging and troubleshooting why SAP threw an error. It's the old joke, isn't it, about BizTalk's your best error logging system your company will ever buy, because that's all it ever did is caught all the errors from the other systems. And really what we're doing with BAM is letting people have access to be able to see if we want them to, that troubleshooting. So here, showing that it doesn't need to be complex, I just say, this one here, we just have a shape that says it started, it went through, it got an error or it succeeded, and we can go in and, you can go into some of the properties here. If you click on that, you can look at messages if you've chose to archive them and stuff. And it's just really about making it accessible. Now, one of the things we've done a bit of a change recently with BAM, where some of our customers give us feedback that actually it was a bit of hard work to build the diagrams for BAM before you can actually really use them. So one of the things we've done is we've added it so if you let me show you here, we've got this new events bit at the top. So what you can do is you can basically just set up a business process, a transaction, and start sending the events to BAM, and they'll just show up in here. And you can see this little map bit ticks if they match something in the diagram, but anything that doesn't match the diagram still shows in the list. And then you can just go and add the shapes later, so you're getting that quick value. And what we're kind of hoping to do in an upcoming release is basically let you build the diagram from the events and just say, add that to my diagram kind of thing, which we think, again, it'll make it easier to use this stuff. So just conscious of time there, I know it's lunchtime coming up. So really this is the area that we want Ronald and Ian to be looking at. Their kind of key things here are, I think we've got the wrong slide in here, have we? Yeah. So, well, there's a couple of things maybe on this slide that might be worth pointing out. So the top two are BAM, but with Ronald and Ian, actually what's really interesting is because they're application super users, one of the things we can do is we can, actually let me show you this because I think it's quite cool. So if I go back to business applications over here, we go into the other interfaces further down. So if I go into my railcar management interfaces here, and I'll go into my loaded railcar. So we can actually let Ronald and Ian have access to business applications, but as read-only users, and we can say, you can see these business apps, and we'll let you see the monitoring status of them. We can even include them in some of the alerts if we wanted to, So those guys, at the end of the day, they're not developers, but they're smart guys. They know what they're doing, and it's really easy to give them, views of some of the dashboards. Maybe we'll go and say, look, here's some dashboards we've built. If you want to go in, you check BAM, you think there might be an issue, before you raise a ticket, go and look at business apps and you can go and see what's going on. You can see if it's showing, if there was an issue, it might be showing red over here. And I think quite a good one's the service map on this app, where you can see that there's actually, if you remember back to that diagram I had earlier on, here we've got the receiver interface in this box here, where we've got a couple of logic apps and a queue. We've got a topic in the middle, and then each of these boxes is other interfaces to other systems who get notified about our loaded rail cars, and you can see those interfaces in one screen. So that idea of the business app saying, I've got my 500 logic apps. For us, our company standards is the integration platform is one resource group. So you can imagine, I think the last time I looked, there was about 789 resources in that resource group. Which ones do you look at for which interface? That's quite hard in itself, but being able to see that tree representation of which things work together to solve which business problem, that's where you really start getting that push left on the support, and you enable those people to do stuff. So just to start wrapping up, I guess maybe a couple of points I just wanted to make on features. So quite recently we added support for serverless for Logic Apps Standard. So we've had consumption for ages, but we put standard in as well. So if anybody's starting to use that, you'll see we've already got features for that. So hopefully that's a big win for everybody. Kind of talked about this a little bit. So this is really where we wanted to get to in the, think back to my very first slide, which was, we have this marketing slide about trying to argue this push left on support. This is really where we're trying to get to, is if I've got my Azure experts and my developers going from, 80, 90% of their, as time passes, 80 or 90% of their support tickets end up going to them. If I can get that down to like 5 or 10%, it's only really the really complicated problems, because most problems aren't that complicated to solve support ticket wise. It's just that these people on the left, they either don't have the tooling to give them access in a safe way to do the support, or they don't understand because it's too complicated in Azure. That's the problem we're really addressing. So we've got a few resources we want to shout out about in this session that you guys might find interesting. So we've got a reference architecture document, which is really about if you're building an integration solution on iPaaS, this is what it looks like, and here's how serverless fits into that picture. So people might find that really interesting. Ezil's done a really great webcast recently, so we've got a link for that. And I think in the post-event material, we're going to be publishing a paper as well for BizTalk migration customers that talks about, if you're a BizTalk customer, here's the support tools, the tracking, the BAMs, the management consoles and that kind of thing. What are your equivalents that you should be looking at in Azure? Where are the gaps and where does serverless help you? There's a really good paper about that coming out, so hopefully people will find that useful. We've got loads of support, sort of community material for like learning and stuff, so check out, Ezil's got a podcast that we do, that's really great. She'd love to hear from people who want to have a chat with her on the podcast as well. We've got recipes, serverless notes. I'll be talking about Integration Playbook, which I think we haven't got the link on here for, but I'll be talking about that tomorrow when we do the test and stuff. And I think that's the thank you. Have we not got another slide? I thought we had I think we've got a thank you slide as well. I don't know where it's gone. Should we share that out afterwards? Yeah. But thanks everybody. Ezil's on the desk, and feel free to give me a shout if anybody's got questions as well. And hopefully, anybody got questions now, it's great. Otherwise, Lex is at lunchtime now, otherwise.
Yeah, we do have an announcement here. So you would have inferred that Serverless 360 is for the technical users, and it's a highly technical product which needs your support to take it to the right audience. So we are we want you to support us on the G2 crowd by providing a review on the product, and to recognize your support, we are happy to give you a $20 Amazon voucher. So you can submit your review, grab a screenshot of it, and join us at the booth, and we are happy to share the coupon with you. Even the online participants can take a screenshot of it and then share it or support at serverless360.com. So as you come back from the lunch, I'll have the QR code and the links displayed on the screen. Please feel free to give in your support through the G2 Crowd review, and we can connect back with us to collect the reward. Thank you. Thanks from the entire Serverless 360 team.
Covey.co